So welcome, and to the audience here, welcome, of course, and big thank you and honor to having you, my panelists. I'll give them in a minute time to introduce themselves. Also on the live streaming, would like to say hello to you, and we're going to talk today about the messaging ecosystem and the market latest trends. There are always new trends, and the old trends we're going to see where they stand now, how far we are. Having said that, I'll give my panelists a quick minute to introduce themselves, and then we'll listen to a very interesting latest information and a knowledge sharing session from my basis, from Edwin. So Edwin, if I may quickly start with you for a quick introduction. Do the rounds for the Igor. You want to start?
Hello, my name is Igor Skutsinja. I'm a business development manager for Lang Telecom, and I'm involved in everything AI, including the AI SMS fraud management system. And also I'm involved in RCS as a team leader. Okay.
Welcome.
I have a microphone. Thank you very much. I am Oscar Lascano. I am a CEO of Aslo. We are a company that work behind many carriers and enterprises to help them secure their architecture for voice messaging and some other type of real-time communication. So thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you. Welcome. And Edwin, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eric. Now, my name, for people who do not know me, Edwin van Eerland, 25 years in the industry. Let's say working for iBasis, the CEO of the voice and mobile department going forward. Let's say, present you with a challenging presentation as soon as my lovely assistant is, yep, there it is. And then I push this button and there we go. For those who do not know, let's say the background of iBasis, let's say 26 years ago, Over Knizia and Gordon Vandenberg in Boston, Massachusetts, started a voice over IP concept at that time. Let's say really spectacular. I think at that time there were 3 or 4 companies around the world. ITXC was one. iBasis was another one, and there were 2 other ones around the world. Let's say with a concept, okay, can we transport a voice minute over IP? Everybody thought a crazy idea. And I still remember the discussions that an MNO said, over my dead body, it will never happen again. And while we were transporting, let's say 60-70% of the Vodafone traffic already over the IP network. So things can change very rapidly. Since that time, let's say, yeah, we do have a roller coaster of events. Let's say in 2006, we did a reverse acquisition between KPN, Global Carrier Services, and iBasis. That resulted in, let's say, that iBasis became a subsidiary of KPN. Let's say in 2010, KPN decided to buy back 100% of the company, and we became a completely full subsidiary of KPN. And 5 years ago, Alexander Pepperot, the former EVP of Orange Wholesale, came with a brilliant idea. I'm going to make, let's say, the companies independent, and I'm going to buy 4 companies in 2 weeks without $1 single in his pocket. How he did that was still a big, let's say, secret. But in the end, he found sponsors, he found financial institutes, and he found, let's say, an interesting, diverse team, let's say, to combine SFR, MEO ICS, Altice Dominican Republic, all together. And that was bought 1 week prior to iBasis. And he asked me, Edwin, can you merge that together and integrate that together to one network? Having said that is one, doing it is number 2. But I can tell you, yes, we demonstrated within, let's say 6 months, one phase to the customer, and that was the new iBasis. In 2020, we also acquired NOS. That was the other Portuguese operator, and at that time we also expanded the business with SMS business going forward. Let's say, I'm quite honest, I had no clue what to do with SMS. We have tried it multiple times ourselves, but with the support of Ricardo Martins and let's say all the experts over there, it was the steepest 101 curve. And to give you an idea, at that time we did 2 million top line revenue, and currently we are doing close to 100 top line revenue in 3 years' time. So that was a steep learning curve. We bought an IoT company in 2020, 2022. And let's say last year we finished the acquisition of Democo. So 7 acquisitions in 5 years' time, let's say fully independent. Now, of course, revenue very positive, EBITDA positive, cash flow positive, carrying no debt, and more to come, let's say that for 2024. But I'm going to continue with some challenging statements. What we have seen is the messaging market is still growing, and that's not a surprise. Let's say if you look at the details from our friend from Mobile Squared, you can see that it grew very fast in 2017 to 2021 with 2.65 billion. But in 2022 on itself, it was already 5.8 billion. Then people will say, is there still a future for SMS? Let's say how many people thought that SMS was dead as soon as WhatsApp was, let's say, introduced. It is still the most reliable end-to-end secure, let's say, transport mechanism from A to B. Will that continue that way? That's a big question. But that's also, let's say, how we operate in this world going forward. And many parties are now looking at ways, should we also not step into the world of SMS A2P, whether that is supported by two-factor authentication or one-time password or other topics. But everybody's looking at it can bring value. And the value is indeed there. Some market trends. Important to know that, let's say, 70% of the mobile operators have installed an SMS firewall to protect their business. And why is that? And I'll come back to that later. 145 mobile operators or even more have exclusive deals. But at the same time, you see that the impact of fraud is there. And the impact of fraud is rapidly increasing. The biggest threat in 2022 was gray routes, artificial traffic, generated traffic, and SMS phishing. And we see that has changed in 2023, where artificial generated traffic is even becoming the biggest threat going forward. The issue is we cause it ourselves. And I will come back to that later. Now, gray routes are there. Acceptable fraud. Now, what is acceptable fraud? There is no acceptable fraud, to be quite honest. So I'm a little bit, let's say, not supporting this statement. And flash calling, we discussed that yesterday as well. In my opinion, flash calling is simply a technology use of the network. Whether that is 1 second and indeed you cannot monitor it, let's say that is not our problem. That is a problem from the MNOs, how they should build in a secure system to start measuring it. We are going to bring solutions. I think like Telecom and my colleague can tell you more about that. But the solutions are there. Let's say if you go to commercial models, then what you see is that the network protection is one. The MNOs can do it by themselves with a CAPEX OPEX model. And then the MNO is fully in control. And they prefer to stay in control. We have seen that in the previous session as well. They become responsible for the SMS firewall and the aggregation activity. You can also go for a no CAPEX, no OPEX model and to install the SMS firewall. But as a trade-off, you outsource the exclusivity of the termination to an aggregator. Now, we all know the Twilios, the Infobibs, and others became big with that revenue share model. Now, then you have a more aggressive model, no CAPEX, no OPEX, but exclusivity of termination to an aggregator with unrealistic financial commitments and unrealistic financial prepayments. And that is what is currently happening at the same time. We see in the market, and that is where we are starting to pollute, let's say, the SMS business, unrealistic, let's say, overcommitments for 2 years and unrealistic, let's say, high prices, automatically generating artificial inflated traffic, etc., etc. So we are, let's say, damaging our own business go forward. Oh, sorry, it's not working. even becoming a bigger problem going forward. 90% of the operators increased their 2021 and 2023. But the biggest issue is 36% of the operators increased the rates with more than 100%. And to give you an idea, one single SMS termination into Indonesia is already 30 cents. Why the hell should I pay 30 cents if I generate 1 billion of SMS into Indonesia? Of course, I'm looking at ways to bypass. I'm looking at ways at alternatives. I'm looking at ways to, let's say, to reduce my cost going forward. And that's exactly what we see happening at this moment. We see higher prices, whereby the result is that there will be increase of fraud and, let's say, the artificial generated traffic. The reduction of the spend of the brands in the SMS channel is a result. The Google is not willing to pay anymore. Amazon is not willing to pay anymore. And they're looking at alternative channels going forward. And then is everybody looking, okay, what the F is happening? How we thought that we had control and that we had a new revenue generator going forward. And that is, let's say, the current state. What is artificial inflated traffic? Let's say the fraudster is generating traffic, most likely in 9 out of 10 cases in the enterprise domain, because they really do not have the tools. And from the enterprise domain, it's going to the MNO. And that is really an example of how it is happening going forward. And it is really a serious threat. And we see that this is really a big issue going forward. If you go to the next one, you will see the, let's say, evolution of the alternative channels. Yep. And you see that WhatsApp one-time password is already 99% cheaper than SMS traffic. And it is growing like hell, more than 1,500% growth between 2022 and 2027. RCS, 3,000% growth from a significant smaller base. And it was already dormant for multiple years because it was already there. The moment was, when will it become active? And of course, this year we saw the past 6 months, it became active. And it became even more active that Apple is announcing, if it is a real announcement or fake announcement, I will come back to that later. And we see also flash calling contributing to the alternative channel. What is the statement? Let me go to 2 sheets forward, please. One more. What is the announcement of Apple to support the RCS messaging? And that, let's say, if you look at the message, the headline is fantastic. And then we'll say, okay, this is the first time that Google is bringing success with enforcing a big player in the market to support RCS messaging. However, there's a big but underneath it. And that is that the GSMA standard, let's say with full end-to-end encryption, no way that Apple will do that. Let's say it's also, let's say, an act to comply with the DMA. The European Union had announced the Digital Marketing Act earlier this year. It was accepted by the EU and surprisingly immediately accepted by the US government as well. And of course, the first one who's going to comply with that is Apple. So I'm not going to say it will not bring, let's say, damage to the industry. No, it will bring more complexity to the industry, because how is the world going to react in a not so complete RCS world, which is being introduced by Apple at this moment? If you go, let's say, to the next one, just a summary of the major fraud trends. You see the artificial initiated traffic, the trashing. On the MNOs, the trashing, the gray routes, the bypass to legal termination, global title faking, also an issue at this moment. And by the end users, we see identity theft and smishing. So that is in general already what we are facing at this moment, due to the fact that we are, let's say, asking for unrealistic pricing, but at the same time that, let's say, parties are doing overcommitments and unrealistic prepayments. Unfortunately, we have too many examples in the industry already, let's say, showing these cases. And yeah, let's say, okay, my presentation might be provocative, but I want a clean market again. Let's say with the voice world, we had the same issue. We had generated traffic. We had A-number manipulation, PIA number manipulation. And I think we are relatively very clean at this moment because we, let's say, we're educating each other how to prevent that the world was going in the wrong direction. If you go 3 sheets further, then you will see that SMS, that's one too much. Yep. A2P SMS has enjoyed a steady growth on a solid foundation. It was, let's say, all over around, it was secure and it was cheap. And it moved away from that. It is not longer secure and it is not longer cheap due to the fact that we created an environment where, let's say, the fraudsters are, let's say, having a significant role in our ecosystem. If you look at the role and the impact of the OTTs, however, they played, next sheet, they played a significant important role. Do not forget that the OTTs helped us massively with SMS. Let's say two-factor authentication and OTP was completely supported by the OTTs. And they're spending millions on huge volumes in that area. And at that time also, the users who were not using SMS anymore but WhatsApp, they said, okay, we still have SMS as a transport mechanism. Let's say to familiarize ourselves. Of course, there is a negative spiral as well. At this moment, they are reducing the volume of SMS they send to the, due to the fact that the costs are unrealistic high. They are creating alternative channels like RCS, WhatsApp termination, SIP trunking bypass, etc., etc. And they are questioning the security of the channel as well. So this is the negative part of the OTT. So where they were helping us in the past, let's say to create a new business opportunity, they are now at the same time, let's say, destroying that business opportunity going forward, caused by ourselves. And then let's say what are the opportunities for the MNOs? If you go to the next one, you will see that the slow migration to other messaging channels, that's extremely slow by the MNOs. RCS termination, WhatsApp termination. You need an omni-channel platform to facilitate that. It is an additional complexity built in your technology infrastructure going forward. Also the pricing, if you lose volume and revenue on the voice side and you were gaining on the SMS side by simply increasing the prices with 1 or 2 cents, why should you not do that? Of course, I can tell that to a CEO of the MNO, but then he will say, okay, this is my short-term gain. What should I do? So that's the, let's say, the status quo he's facing at the same time. Let's say, long story short, if you go to my final sheet, immediate action is needed to stop, let's say, the artificial traffic. I think we need transparency and fair pricing and not 30 cents for an SMS termination, because in the end, regulation, authorities will step in, let's say, what we have seen in voice as well. The commercial model should be revised, and we need to restore the trust in SMS as a more secure channel, and of course, capitalize the potential in specific SMS use cases. Let's say this is my opening statement for further discussions in this panel. Let's say it that way, Eric.
Thank you, Edwin. Thank you so much, and thank you for the insights. And yes, as iBasis started, and it has in its genes to be disruptive and provocative, I think that parts of your presentation is, but with a clear message. So thank you for that, and we can use it absolutely to start our discussion. And I mean, you mentioned already, let's say the trends, well, what we see, where they come from, how useless they are in some aspects, how it is that we should watch that we don't blow up our own bubble, and because it's overnight it could change. So questions to my other fellow panelists, and if I may start with you, Oscar, to see what's your view on, let's say, what's your helicopter view of the market? What's going on? Of course, you agree with what Edwin already stated, but what else do you see? And maybe specifically for the Americas, is there anything specific you see? What's up? What's up?
Well, I would like to highlight two major realities here, especially on the messaging ecosystem. Number one is that the security factor seems to be driving innovation. That's number one on the messaging channel. And number two is that sometimes I believe the operator hasn't realized that the telco itself is no longer defining the rules for playing this game. I think that changed at least 10 years ago. And this fact is not only impacting messaging, but it's also impacting voice. And it's even impacting how the operator is now capable of offering their value into the enterprise side. Let me just give you a couple of examples to get in context. Microsoft and Cisco, they are now defining how you as a telco can sell SIP trunking to the enterprise sector who is moving to the cloud. You have to become an operator connect. You have to become a direct routing. You have to become part of the ecosystem. Why? Because the companies decided to use their platform and they no longer need copper. They no longer need fiber. Not for voice, of course, they need it for data. But strictly speaking about voice and messaging, now you need to comply with Microsoft rules. On the RCS world, the telco needs to comply with the Google rules, even though the standard started on the GSMA. With all the power that Google has, they said, thank you very much for the standard, but this is how it's going to play. This is how you have to do it, and I will make it easier for you, but you have to adopt my cloud, you have to adopt my hub, you have to use my APIs, and you're no longer in control. And then there is a new breed of companies who come from the software world, capable enough to build these APIs quickly, and now they are the ones making money out of this revolution of messaging. The telco is no longer in control. So my question is, and hopefully we can answer collectively, is how is the telco going to tap into that revenue to give a third life to the SMS world? Because of course, SMS was dying. Two-factor authentication was the second life. What I can tell you, the second biggest bank in Mexico is moving away from SMS. Why? Because of the security factor, its mission. Identity theft is completely out of control. That's what we do. But even us building solutions for securing the channel, the banks decided no longer SMS. Why? Because now they can send push notifications on their own app using the Google Firebase framework, which is messaging. It's one type of framework. Now, second thing is, you were saying 22% of WhatsApp traffic. I'm not sure if that's worldwide or on a specific regions, but in Mexico, that is 99% of WhatsApp traffic. We have 130 million smartphones in Mexico, for instance. More than 95% are in WhatsApp. And another thing that I believe companies need to look at is how the consumer is using their services. Young kids, I have a 17-year-old daughter. I just cannot convince her to use SMS when for some reason she runs out of data.
Of course, you know what she says, Daddy, come on. You're
Exactly.
So old school.
What is that? They just don't get it. And I'm like, Sophia, look, in Mexico, we have hurricanes, we have earthquakes. You were saying something about it, right? And during earthquakes, cell phone goes down. I mean, the data, but not SMS. They will never use it. So companies really need to look at the new game of power within the players, and do not forget how the new users will consume services if you want to aspire to have some success on this one.
Okay, thank you. Igor, your take on the ecosystem. What do we see? What do you see?
I think it's very, very important to underline once again the factor that exclusive deals are playing in AIT. Because basically what we see, there's a direct correlation between the networks where AIT actually is happening, or the numbers being used to be exact. Not necessarily the AIT traffic is reaching those networks, but still. And the mechanism is as follows, where the operators will make an exclusive deal with a certain aggregator, where the commitment in monetary value will exceed the SMS business on that network. So basically, a 600,000 euro market would be bringing an operator 800,000, 900,000 euros in commitment in money, not even in the amount of traffic. So what happens is that this same aggregator, which would make this exclusive deal, will have to earn those money, even though this money volume is exceeding the volume of the market. So they will generate it. And that's the thing, that it's not really a secret that, if there is an amount of money that is exceeding the size of your market, there's probably some shady things going on. However, the operators, since their voice revenue is going down, and also the OBR didn't help either, and they need some extra revenue, and this is why they're motivated to take those deals, which is, and sadly, this is one of the things that they could do otherwise, other than increasing their prices, to meet the revenue goals, and to maintain the infrastructure that is really costly. That's a heavy thing, and we all understand. However, this is how things are going right now. And once again, I would like to repeat myself from yesterday about WhatsApp. It's a better price channel, yes. However, this is a proprietary channel with virtually no security setup whatsoever. Whenever the fraudsters use WhatsApp channel, there's nowhere you can go. I mean, with SMS, with voice, you have regulators, and whenever the fraudsters would use WhatsApp channel, there's nothing you can do other than exercise caution, exercise common sense, and sadly, still people are still falling victims.
Yeah, but the people don't care. That's what what Oscar just mentioned. 99% in Mexico, they use WhatsApp. They don't care. Everybody's on Facebook. They don't care.
That's the thing. I mean, the person that's been hit with a fraudster that has embezzled some significant fund from him or her, they were reached from by WhatsApp to WhatsApp, and this is how you do it. There's no way I mean, the only tie to the mobile number used was when the one-time password was delivered to enabling the WhatsApp channel. That's it. So the banks, when they open this Pandora box of using WhatsApp as an official communication channel, they welcome fraudsters. They welcome the fraudsters to use this channel, proprietary, untraceable, completely unsafe.
They opened up the door.
Oh yeah, yeah, and they like it because apparently they save some funds. And I mean, we're all in commercial business. This is, I mean, you're supposed to earn. However, it's like the supermarket. You can get all the goods that you like. You can get your cart super full with lots of things that you like, but the cash register would be at the end. So this is kind of my end.
Okay, going into that, just on this example, Oscar, because I'm curious. I mean, he's throwing, of course, a curveball here, right? And on the WhatsApp. So with the banks, I mean, is it that they don't care? For instance, in Mexico, what you mentioned
About using WhatsApp?
Yeah.
Look, if we look at the budgets in just imagine the board in a bank, what it's important for not only the banks, but for every enterprise who counts their end users in millions, is how do I push adoptions of my digital services? And that is what drives the decisions of which channels they are going to use to communicate with them. It's not security at all. Look, I sit down every day, hopefully every day, but at least every month, with the groups in this industry responsible for reducing fraud. And I'm talking to 3 or 4 guys responsible for the whole thing in a bank that counts for, 15 million users on digital apps. So it's not about security. It is about what the customer is using so that they will get my message, so that they will click on my link, so that they can access and open an account now with supposedly more secure messages such as biometrics and all that. No, so I'm gonna have to disagree with you with WhatsApp. I agree with you that it's pretty insecure, but SMS is no more secure at all. So I can open my computer right now and go to bulksms.net and shoot
Yes, you can.
a blast of SMS to a list of mobile numbers that, by the way, I can buy very cheap on every market. I get emails every day from companies selling me databases from buyers from any industry that I want. Pay $5 with my credit card, some others with Bitcoin. That's even more untraceable. And then I can send smishing SMSs with nobody pursuing me. So I agree that if you lose your WhatsApp account or if somebody's misusing a WhatsApp account, Facebook is not going to do anything about it. But at the same time,
Of course not.
But what are we doing with the fact that I can go and buy a DID from openphone.com, which is capable of receiving a two-factor authentication, and then I open a WhatsApp business account without even having a smartphone on my hand. And then from there, I can do smishing to many users. So really, the fraudster is going to be wherever the user is. No matter how secure we think the channel is, the fraudster will find a way to abuse that.
The fraudster will come in when there is a reasonable amount of money to be made.
Exactly.
And coming to the to Edwin's example of Indonesia, where you pay, 26, 29, $30 for the message. I mean, you open up the door for, if I may say so, shit in your industry, because that's actually what it's all about.
Exactly. And let's say if you reduce the price to a normal, let's say, commercial rate, and then not as aggressive as we have seen in the voice, and there is no reason for the fraudster to tap into that world because his business case doesn't make any sense anymore. That's also what you see with the ransomware attackers. Their business case is who's going to pay, and 10 out of 11 don't pay, and one is paying, and that's their business model. But again, it's a spiral. Let's say you see the temptation, let's say, to go for the revenue push to compensate what we lose on the voice side, being compensated on the SMS side, while at the same time people do not realize the consequences. I see the opposite in Europe, by the way. In my enterprise environment, the banking is going back to SMS. Let's say many partners are going back to SMS, let's say, which is creating a series, let's say, push on my regional and global enterprise SMS traffic, which is nice. On the wholesale side, I'm facing the opposite. I'm facing all these challenges as we speak right now. Let's say we have multiple components of, let's say, the wholesale is one component, the regional enterprise is another component, and the global enterprise is one. And then we have the monetization part, whereby we offer a complete firewall solution, including, let's say, a realistic commitment with a realistic, not upfront payment, but just what you pay as soon as you deliver. And the problem is, let's say, these overcommitments in combination with the pricing is making the world toxic.
That's really a shitty thing. Sorry for my Dutch again. Because those overcommitments and also those prepayments, so tempted. I mean, you mentioned it as well. And this should, I mean, I understand, I'm an M&A guy. So I know if I want to, grow, I'd rather do it inorganically because then I'm faster in my target time to market, right? So I just buy something and then I have a control over this one and I'll put this on my balance sheet and look how good I am, right? So I understand the idea and I understand human beings. But what they should understand, and we do have the example in the voice, it is clearly there. And we just, go into the same, we jump into the same thingy again. And we are just a bit more creative.
It's even worse, Eric. Let's say what we see now in the SMS is even copy-paste in the voice world. Let's say we see now RFPs in declining markets where people are asking for commitments, guaranteed commitments for 2 or 3 years with guaranteed pricing. I said, come on, guys, in which world do you live?
deranged.
That's a declining market. So why the hell should I bring a commitment to you? But you see it in the RFPs already. So it's becoming toxic, globally toxic. And I think what we need to do is push it back where it belongs and make realistic commercial pricing. Of course, alternative channels, they are there. They should always be there. And make it happen with omni-channel solutions so that you also can enable WhatsApp termination or RCS termination going forward. And that is where we should invest and the MNO should invest. But unrealistic pricing, overcommitment, it is asking for problems.
What, because you mentioned that sometimes we saw, let's say, a 300% rate increase, within a couple of minutes. So Igor, please come. What was the reason for it? Is it the reason what they always say? Yeah, but you know what? You in the West, you have everything is sophisticated. You have everything there. We don't have it yet. We need to make these investments, and therefore we increase. That's why the regulator says, sure, you increase the rate. That's fine.
Yeah, I would assume that. Well, just a small comment about one more consequence of raising prices.
Sure.
The flash call rising has the same basis as with AIT. You raise the prices of SMS, and guess what? You're motivating the enterprises to go in for the flash call as an alternative way to deliver OTP. And we see a very direct correlation between the price of SMS and the amount of the flash calls that are being generated. And some markets where the price of SMS is double digits, you see up to 20% of all inbound call attempts are basically flash calls. I mean, what did you expect? As for the prices being up for SMS, especially those market where with the developed countries. So for obvious reasons, their capital is a lot more expensive than with the markets where the money is basically is laying on the table every time you go into the bank. And if they have to pay a lot more for the capital and do stuff, that means that they have to be turning it over and get break even a lot faster, and basically put a lot larger margin on it. This is economy 101, and obviously they should be looking for alternative ways. And but at the end of the day, the customer ultimately pays the price. And they are being very, very blunt about it. They're being very, I would assume, self-consuming and self-destroying in that. But this is the direct consequence of very simple financial decisions, sadly.
But hold on, come on. Please, Eugene, jump in.
Okay, thank you. Very good presentation, Edwin. First of all, fraud is a big business. All right, it's a $47 billion effect in 2023. So it's the business models, it's a big business. So that's where it is. In reference to why the pricing going, well, one of the reasons is also the loss of P2P. All right, so there's a compensation of that loss by raising pricing on A2P. All right. I think what's interesting, and this is brought up in Edwin's last slide, point number one is the AIT. I mean, we know what generates it. A lot of it has to do with the deals that has been referred to. But the players are offering it. People are offering tons of money for commitments. And they know if they don't meet the commitments, they just turn it on. So how do you deal with that? The big factor here is there's no regulation. Okay, so how do you regulate the fraud? There is no regulation. In the voice, what's happened is the operators themselves, through organizations such as the I3 Forum, the GLF, and et cetera, basically have come to some kind of agreement in pointing out who are the bad players possible. But no one likes to block traffic, because if you block traffic and it's real traffic, then you're in trouble. So there's a movement, and Igor's quite a bit involved with Lang Telecom on what to do about fraudsters and fraud on the SMS side, and that's another whole story. And again, the I3 forums, the GLFs, the MEF organizations, they're all coming up with a code of conduct, paper, let's call it, to address the fraud in the messaging. But the bottom line, there's money there to be made, and people are just going to take advantage of it.
Indeed, Eugene, that's going to happen. You can do nothing and watch it and become part of the ecosystem which is driven by fraud, or you can attack it. I think what we did in Voice as well was generate the traffic. We started the code of conduct, and automatically it was filtering out the parties who were, let's say, suspect to generate the traffic, anonymous manipulation, etc., etc. And they didn't like it when their reputation was at risk or announced in, let's say, ITWs or GCCM meetings or whatsoever, because that's going to happen. You finger point, you know that party, and that's how it works in the system. I think in the GLF now, the working group mobile messaging is now starting off with the attempt, indeed, let's say, to control, let's say, and to reduce the fraudsters going forward. But at the same time, who's organizing the next two WASs? There is one WAS organized in Turkey, the other WAS is organized in Bali, sponsored by two, in my eyes, partners who are subject to fraud with artificial generated traffic. And that's a bold statement, but they know that. And from a GSMA perspective, we should say, okay, we are not longer going to support that. And of course, you were there with the GTM, the first GTM, when we made the alternative move to the ITW. We did exactly the same. We grouped together, and with 1 or 2 or 5 big partners, we were able to influence the market and to kill the GTM, and at the same time, overnight establish a new ITW. And that's the reason. And perhaps a missionary in the desert, fine, but I think doing nothing is not an option.
No, I think it comes down to that. Indeed, I think, I mean, it's my personal opinion. If you stick together, you make a plan and you say, guys, come on, let's do it. I know there are short-term wins, and it is there, but by the end of the day, it is nice for maybe until the end of the year. But then what? You see your revenues and margins declining. Your spend, on everything which is anti-fraud will go, skyrocket. I mean, some people will benefit from it. There's a business for everybody in here, which is also fine and legit. But by the end of the day, get together and agree on something and say, let's just not kill each other. Let's not do it. Otherwise, in a couple of years, you could say, you know what? But it's not always easy. And you need the visionaries in there around the table who says, listen, guys, you know what? This is what we saw already happening in voice. Let's not have it happening in, the messaging, And I would like to ask my my fellow panelists, and thank you for the question, Eugene, to give a close statement. What should we do? What should we look out for? And maybe some positive things for 2024. I don't know. Igor, you kick it off.
Sure. Thank you very much. Well, just a small comment to what you just said is it's still not too late to invest in the messaging fraud management system. We understand that the technology is in infancy. It's nowhere near where it's in voice, but still, let's not wait till the moment that they already face in voice, where you're supposed to invest something in kind of anti-fraud voice solution. And the budgeting committee says, look, you have a declining volume of the business, but you're asking me for more money to be put into that thing. Does that make sense? And we understand that many operators and many companies around the world, they have the same dilemma. And let's not wait till the same thing happens in the messaging, and let's have just better technology, AI, validation, any kind of information exchange maintained in messaging before it's too late. As far as the perspective goes, I think just like we said at the beginning of this panel, the messaging is on the rise, and there's the demand is increasing. It's just we need to make sure that we provide the most value for an adequate compensation. We provide safety that, in my opinion, isn't there in alternative channels like OTTs and others. We provide obviously omnipresence. I mean, this whole thing with Apple, whether they accept it or not, there is no such dilemma in SMS. The SMS doesn't care if it's Android, Symbian, or Apple, and let's just maintain it. It's needed to be cautious and very, very smart about how do you move with a commercial model, but still, the messaging will be there 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now.
Thank you. Something good for the industry is interoperability, which you just said. It's a very big challenge if you want to evolve to the newest technologies such as RCS and the over the tops and all that. So that's one thing that the SMS has. It's already interoperable worldwide, right? And especially, and not only between the telco networks, but on the devices that people are carrying every time. So the message is there. I believe in second place that the telco needs to, most of the telcos need to get out of this comfort zone and become a solution provider rather than just a telecommunications company. So the transport is pretty important. We cannot live without the transport, and I know that is a major challenge, but they should have everyone, at least one division responsible for bringing solutions to the different sectors where they expect their services to be adopted, because that's where they tap on these over-the-top revenue or other trends where they kind of lose control, but they still need to want to make money, and they need to build new revenue streams, not only voice and text and transport. There's much more that they can tap in, and there are opportunities to do that if they choose the right partners. That's number thing. And number three is the security and the ethics within the sector. I believe this forum, for instance, GCCM, it's a great example, and it could be a great starting point to bring those discussions in the table. And not only to make business on the bill-out tables and to negotiate the better rate, but to sit down the real stakeholders, the decision makers, and begin these discussions from the players, not the commercial sides, not the regulators, not the technical experts who understand the bits and the bytes, not from the business side. What are we going to do? And then I think we should have more interesting conversation about this in the coming years.
Edwin, famous last words.
So I need to thank you now as a moderator or not?
It is all time to thank me as
All
well.
right. Now, let's say I'm not going to state more, but make it clean again. And let's say there are ethical boundaries in our industry which we should follow. Let's say, and again, let's say use the discussion, let's say, to educate each other and bring it back to normal. That's my final statement.
Okay, thank you. And if I may add to that, I do think, we're all in an ice cream shop, right? It's not only vanilla. That there's room for more flavors, which is fine. But just, keep it clean with common sense and no overcommitments, which is stupid. I know you can make money with it, but just stop it. Just stop it. And then I think we're good to go. Don't you think? Right? And from GCCM, thank you for joining. Thank you for the people virtually joining. Thank you so much. And see you soon on wherever on our platform. And from GCCM, we're going to close before we go for lunch. And I want to wish you happy holidays, guys. See you soon.